Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your kind remarks. Mr. Chairman, this is this new iteration of the Task Force to Investigate Terrorist Financing is sort of a continuation of an effort that has been underway for some years. I want to just thank Chairman Hensarling and Ranking Members Waters really for the insight. We have been doing this work, but not under the auspices of this committee, sort of out as a separate task force. And I am just very thankful, delighted that Chairman Hensarling and Ms. Waters have seen the importance of this and have really resourced it and taken a very serious approach to the work that we were doing basically as volunteers, myself and Mr. King of New York and others who preceded us. But we all understand, I think, that detecting and disrupting the flow of funding to terrorist groups is a crucial part of our fight against terrorism. And while it has proven to be challenging work, it's also vital and worthwhile. And I'm honored to serve as the ranking member, and I want to thank Ms. Waters especially for allowing me to head this up for the Democratic side. And I look forward to working with Chairman Fitzpatrick and Vice Chair Pittenger and the rest of my colleagues on the task force to improve our efforts to halt terrorist financing. Now, we're all very much aware of the threats presented by terrorist organizations, including ISIL and Al-Qaeda in the Middle East and Boko Haram and Al-Shabaab in Africa. Without the financial resources, these organizations will not be able to effectively carry out their attacks, pay their fighters, and otherwise support their operations. Thus, one way to disrupt and to stop these groups, we believe, is to cut off their funding. In particular, we must support the important work of the Financial Action Task Force, which is an intergovernmental body consisting of over 30 member jurisdictions, which is dedicated to strengthening our worldwide anti-terrorist financing and anti-money laundering policies. And financial intelligence units, the national centers that receive, investigate, and share financial intelligence with law enforcement agencies and international financial intelligence counterparts across the globe. This, of course, includes our own Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, which is our FIU responsible for safeguarding our financial system from illicit use by collecting, analyzing, and sharing financial intelligence with U.S. law enforcement agencies and others around the world. And they've been terrific. I have worked with them in Jordan, in Afghanistan, recently in Nigeria, Morocco, Tunisia. They've been doing wonderful, wonderful work, and they are, as well as the Treasury Department, have been an outstanding presence on our behalf around the globe. According to the U.S. State Department 2014 International Narcotics Control Strategy Report, many of the terrorist hotspots around the world, including Kenya and Somalia, do not have adequate systems in place to track and stop the flow of funds to terrorist groups. This makes them increasingly vulnerable to money laundering and financial fraud. Last month, members of our committee had a chance to travel to Nigeria as part of a congressional delegation through the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. And while there, we had an opportunity to examine the progress of regional counterterrorism efforts to combat the terrorist group Boko Haram. We arrived in Nigeria amidst media reports that Boko Haram had officially pledged its allegiance to ISIL, and in the immediate aftermath of a series of terrorist bombings perpetrated on March 7, 2015 in Maiduguri, the capital of Borno State in northeastern Nigeria, which killed over 50 people and left about 140 people wounded. While in Nigeria, I met with Nigeria's FIU, Acting Director Francis Usani. During our meeting, it became apparent that the effectiveness of the government of Nigeria's counterterrorism efforts against Boko Haram will greatly depend on its ability to address regional terrorist financing and money laundering activities. So we in the U.S. can play a significant role by supporting the Nigerian FIU in further developing its anti-terrorist financing and anti-money laundering capabilities through advanced legal and operational training and technological assistance. Witnessing the important work of Nigeria's FIU during this recent congressional delegation demonstrated the need for the United States to continue to support international government efforts to develop robust legal, regulatory, and operational frameworks to combat terrorist financing and money laundering. This should be done in accordance with the landmark recommendations issued by the FATF. While the United States government is highly committed to its counterterrorism efforts, we must ensure that our government is also doing all it can to curb the flow of funding to terrorist groups and evolve as these organizations constantly shift their funding methods. So in closing, I look forward to hearing the testimony from our witnesses so we can examine the issues further. I yield back the balance of my time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.